Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Techify with Adil. Hope everyone doing good. So in this video we will be covering the next Azure fundamentals topic, Azure compute and network services. So here in this current video we will see under the Azure compute and network services we will be covering Azure Virtual Machine and Azure Virtual Desktop. So next video there will be a lab exercise showing how to create a virtual machine in the learn sandbox. So here in this video today we'll be covering what the Azure Virtual Machine is about and what is the uh, Azure Virtual Desktop is. So in general it both looks very similar, but actually there's a difference of running a virtual desktop and also as running a virtual machine. So let me cover here let me tell you the basic and very important differences. So Azure Virtual Machine, we will go for Azure Virtual Machine when we need the full control over the platform. Like I need control over the OS, like which OS I need to use, like Linux or Linux versions or CentOS or Windows and Windows which versions, and I need to have a host environment customization or software application customization. If I want to have full control and customizations, then we will be going to Azure Virtual Machine. When it goes to Virtual Desktop, Azure Virtual Desktop, it's a Microsoft service that runs a virtual desktop with Windows OS. So it's already a service. So the management of the service is managed by Microsoft, and we just have the experience of Windows. We will just do have an experience of using a Windows notebook in cloud. That's the basic difference. So when you want to have more control, like when you want to have more customizations things, like then you go for Azure Virtual Machine. The other way, you just need a remote desktop access for your employees, then we go for virtual desktop. So there are a lot of other advantages and differences in both the services. Let us see one by one by this video. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe, like and share my channel so that everyone is also learn some knowledge on Azure fundamentals. Okay, Azure Virtual Machines. So this will be the first topic. Let me change pointer. Okay, so Azure Virtual Machines, we already in the previous video I have shown in the under the topic of resource creation. So we saw how we creating Azure Virtual Machine. So that's the basic machine creation. So here we will be seeing in detail about Azure Virtual Machine and users and what are the additional things we can do it, like template creating and so on. Okay, so with Azure Virtual Machines, you can create and use VMs in cloud. So like usually we know in VMware workstations are commonly used VMware. So it's a virtual machine we use in on-premise. So with using the Azure Virtual Machines, we can host the same VMs in the cloud. So we no need to buy the hardware. Instead, we just host it in the cloud. VMs provide infrastructure as a service. So it's an infrastructure is the one we are using only the infrastructure. So in the form of virtualized server and can be used in many ways. So just like a physical computer, you can customize all the software running on your VM. So VMs are an ideal choice when you need like total control of all operating system, then ability to run custom software, to use custom hosting configurations. So in general, like who have been using this VM for server for hosting applications will know this. Like we can have full control of the OS, then we can ability to customize whatever changes we can. We will be able to do it, and hosting configurations also we will be able to do this. They're very similar to that. We can also do all this in the Azure Virtual Machine, the virtual machine that's hosted in the cloud as well. So it's very similar to that. So as an infrastructure as a service offering, you still need to configure, update and maintain the software that runs on the VM. So this is known, it's just because they just provide the infrastructure only. So anything above the infrastructure we will have to maintain. You can create and provision a VM in minutes when you select a pre-configured VM image. So this one we can compare to our PC setup. Say example, I have a new notebook procured by the company, so I have to set up for a user. So the steps will be like, I have to install the OS, then install, if it comes with the pre-installed OS, then I have to update it to the latest patches or latest OS versions, whatever the company standard is. Then I have to install all the basic applications and additional applications whatever the user requires, and there might be some settings to be applied with respect to the companies, so we need to apply all the settings. So this is a normal way. The other way is usually what in enterprise and companies we do is, so as a desktop engineer we usually prepare all these basic settings which is common for all the user, like patches and everything. Then we take the backup. So all these things we have also covered in my previous videos, like using Acronis, then using DASM, how to back up the image and all those things. You can refer back to my previous videos. So what we do is we back up everything and we use that for as a template for new notebook. So when the new notebook arrives, we just use that to clone or we just re-image the notebook with that template image. So we no need to reinstall the applications, or we no need to do patching and no need to do the settings. We can just avoid all this times we spending on all these steps. Similar to that, in the Azure VM also there's an option called template. An image is a template used to create a VM and may already include an OS and other software like development tools or web hosting environment. So once you have created an image for first time, then you can add it as a template. Then on moving forward, any images any notebook you are any VMs you are creating, you can use that template OS, so that already the settings and all the applications whatever you have included is installed directly to the VM. So we no need to do this again one round. So scale VMs in Azure. You can run single VMs for testing, development or minor tasks, or you can group VMs together to provide high availability, scalability and redundancy. So this high availability, scalability and redundancy we have already covered in the initial Azure videos. You can refer back to my basic starting videos for this topics. Azure can also manage the grouping of VMs for you with features such as scale sets and availability sets. So virtual machine scale set. So virtual machine scale set lets you create and manage a group of identical load balanced VMs. So if you simply created multiple VMs with the same purpose, you need to ensure they were all configured identically and then set up network routing parameters to ensure efficiency. You would also have to monitor the utilization to determine if you need to increase or decrease the number of VMs. So we can create a set of VMs or a group of identical VMs, so that based on the traffic or requirement, your VMs will share the load. So it's called the scale set. So having a group of identical load balanced VM, so doing similar or same job, so that it can route the things based on the network traffic, so the efficiency is ensured. Instead, the virtual machine scale sets, Azure automates most of that work. So generally, okay, so when we are having the scale set setup, so we will have to monitor the utilization to determine if you need to increase or decrease the number of VMs. That's in the normal scale set way how it's been done. So we have to, based on the utilization, we will have to do it. So with virtual machine scale set, So Azure automates. So if you are having a virtual machine scale setup done, then the Azure will take care of that monitoring the utilization and determining whether the resources has to be increased or number of VMs has to be decreased. So that part will be totally handled by the Azure. So that's the advantage of using virtual machine scale set. Scale set allows you to centrally manage, configure and update a large number of VMs in minutes. The number of VM instances can automatically increase and decrease in response to demand, or you can set it to scale based on defined schedule. So we can schedule, so like I need every Friday I need this much of VMs to be on, and every Monday I need it to be reduced to lesser. So based on that also schedule you can also do it, or based on the requirement the virtual machine scale set will automatically increase and decrease based on the demand. Virtual machine scale sets also automatically deploy a load balancer to make sure that your resources are being used efficiently. So when you have a virtual machine scale set, automatically deploys a load balancer. So we just take note of this part. So we have virtual machine scale set assigned, then we know there is a load balancer between the virtual machines in the scale set. With virtual machine scale set, you can build a large scale services for areas such as compute, big data and container workloads. This is then availability set. So virtual machine availability set are another tool to help you build a more resilient, high available environment. So availability set are designed to ensure that VMs stagger updates and have varied power and network connectivity, preventing you from losing all your VMs with a single network or power failure. So availability accomplish these objectives by grouping VMs in two ways. One is update domain, the other one is fault domain. So the update domain is group of VMs that can be rebooted at the same time. Fault domain is group of VMs by common power source and network switch. So this, when you are creating the VMs, you group it to availability, you create a availability set. So it can be of update domain and it can be of fault domain. So what this update domain is? So update domain covers any known or predefined or scheduled downtime. So you are going to update the VM, so you need to reboot it. So this will be covered by your update domain. So this set allows you to apply updates while knowingly the offline at a time. So it will cover that. The fault domain is unexpected down. So sudden power failure or a network switch is down. So in those kind of cases, the availability set you assign with the fault domain will handle it. So we need to have update domain and also fault domain for known or scheduled downtime and for unexpected downtime. So the best of all is there's no additional cost for configuring any availability set. You only pay for the VM instances you create. So you don't need to pay additional cost for the availability set. So availability set is also one of the important topic. So okay, so when to use VMs? So usually is the physical computer is the one we use. So there's another option, VM. So we have a question like when to use VM. So during testing and development, so you don't need to set a physical thing. So you just can use for testing and for development you just can use a VM. When running application in cloud, when extending your data center to cloud from on-premise is already existing on, so you're extending it to the cloud part. During disaster recovery. Okay, move to the clouds with VM. So this is already you have a VM in on-prem and you are moving to the cloud. So VMs are also an excellent choice when you move from physical server to the cloud. So you can create an image of the physical server and host it within the VM with little or no changes. Just like a physical on-premise server, you must maintain the VM. So you are responsible for maintaining the installed OS and software as well. So just keep keep in mind, you have to remember this part. Your VM in cloud, Azure VMs, is just infrastructure as a service, just provides you the infrastructure. Everything above this infrastructure is managed by the vendor. I mean, like the enterprise, whoever's handling, they will have to handle it. When you provision a VM, you will also have the chance to pick the resources that are associated with that VM. So including the size, storage, disk, and networking, like public IP, port configurations, hard disk. You need a hard disk or you need SSD, like size of that. Then processors you need, amount of RAM you need. So everything is resources you based on what you pick. So you will be actually picking all this when you create the VM. Actually, in the video of resource creation, I have mentioned, I have showed you models. A default in that video, I actually would have shown you a default design to choose, like D2, D3, A2, A3. So each design will have its configurations, like what is the number of processor, what is the RAM, like that. And storage also, you would have this option to choose. Maybe if you go through that, you will understand the creation of Azure, how these options have been chosen. So the next topic will be Azure Virtual Desktop. So Azure VM is what we have been discussing so far. So next is Azure Virtual Desktop. There is a minor difference between them. Another type of virtual machine is the Azure Virtual Desktop. So Azure Virtual Desktop is a desktop and application virtualization service that runs on the cloud. So this is the whole entire desktop running on the cloud itself is offered as a service by Microsoft. So the first part as Azure Virtual Machine is they just provide us infrastructure based on the design we chose. Then we have to install the OS and we do all those things. So here a virtual desktop itself is provided as a Azure service. So it enables to use a cloud hosted version of Windows from any location. So Azure Virtual Desktop works across devices and operating systems and works with apps that you can use to access remote desktops or most modern browsers. So here we will see a short video about Azure Virtual Desktop.
Welcome to Windows Virtual Desktop Essentials. If your organization is looking for a more efficient, productive, and secure approach to desktop virtualization, in the next few minutes I'm going to walk you through Microsoft's Windows Virtual Desktop solution on Microsoft Azure. It offers a fully managed desktop virtualization solution in the cloud. And the good news is it works with all your apps and devices. As you can expect, we have full-featured native client support for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, as well as new HTML5 support so that you can access remote desktops and apps from almost any modern browser. So why desktop virtualization? Well, for a while it's been looked upon as a solution for enabling central management and security of your users' desktops and also with less IT management overhead. Now this approach separates your operating systems, data, and apps from local hardware, running them instead separately on a remote server. Now the main appeal is that you can separate the compute environment from user devices so that the risk of confidential information being left on a personal device is greatly reduced. You can also make sure that your virtual machines run in close proximity to apps and services that connect to your data center or the cloud. End users have the freedom to connect with any device over the internet, and for IT, you don't have to worry as much about the device that's connecting so long as the network connection is secure. That said, standing up a desktop virtualization environment has traditionally been expensive and also complex. Users have often lacked the productivity experience of a locally provisioned desktop, and it can take weeks and sometimes months to get a successful implementation up and running. Now, with Windows Virtual Desktop, all of this complexity goes away. We give you a remote desktop infrastructure that contains the roles that you would have had to manage at scale. Things like your gateway, broker, diagnostics, load balancing, and more as a fully managed service on Azure. All your VMs in the Windows Virtual Desktop service communicate over a secure outbound connection, and you benefit from unlimited capacity. And you can also choose any size VM in Azure and vary the density of users based on the workload. We also give you more choice in how you distribute users across those VMs. For example, you're not limited to a Windows Server OS in cases where you want to assign more than one user per virtual machine. With Windows 10 Enterprise Multi-Session, for example, you can gain efficiencies by having multiple users on a single VM, and unlike multi-session Windows Server implementations, it has the support for modern apps like OneNote and Office 365 apps, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute. You can deploy a full desktop, remote apps, or both, and of course, you can scale up or scale down as needed while paying only for what you use. Now, for users, things get even better. Now there's no compromise between their virtual desktop productivity experience and what they would experience if they had a locally hosted desktop running on their PC. It's the same. Now in Windows 10, for example, your full collection of apps, whether they're Win32 line of business apps or UWP apps, those will run. Apps are fully integrated with the Start menu. You can pin them to your taskbar, and the only indication the app is virtual is through the glyph. You can copy, paste, or snap apps side to side. They look and feel like local apps. And you don't even need to be on a PC. You can also be on a Mac, iPad, iPhone, your Android phone, or even the browser. The experience is going to be the same. So next, please continue to watch our series for hands-on guidance on the steps to prepare, deploy, and optimize Windows Virtual Desktop for your organization. Thanks for watching.
Okay, the Azure Virtual Desktop provides you enhanced security. So we'll see how that is being achieved. So Azure Virtual Desktop provides centralized security management for users desktops with Microsoft Entra ID. So you know what is Microsoft Entra ID is. So Microsoft Entra ID is nothing but is Azure AD. So they have changed name of Azure AD as Entra ID. So you can enable multi-factor authentication to secure user sign-ins. You can also secure access to data by assigning granular role-based access controls. So they call this RBAC. So it's a role-based access control. So with Azure Virtual Desktop, the data and apps are separated from the local hardware because the data is not stored in your local. So the entire machine is in the cloud. The actual desktop and apps are running in the cloud, meaning the risk of confidential data being left on a personal device is reduced. Additionally, user sessions are isolated in both single and multi-session environments. So multi-session Windows 10 or Windows 11 deployment. So multi-session Windows deployment. So Azure Virtual Desktop lets you use Windows 10 or Windows 11 Enterprise multi-session, the only Windows client-based operating system that enables multiple concurrent users on a single VM. So it's like multiple users can access to a same VM from different locations, from different devices at the same time. So it's a multiple concurrent users on a same VM. So this is one of the biggest advantage in using the Azure Virtual Desktop. So Azure Virtual Desktop also provides a more consistent experience with the broader application support compared to Windows Server based operating system. Hope the video was very helpful. You can watch all my videos under the Azure Fundamentals playlist so that you learn more on Azure Fundamentals, either for certification or for just gaining knowledge on Azure. We will meet again in the next video. Thank you.